Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about the year 1492, also called the Crucial Year. This year is most commonly associated with Christopher Columbus, but there's other events that occurred that makes this year so crucial. So first we're going to be talking about the Moors. The Moors lived in Granada, which is a peninsula in Spain. And during the year 1492, in roughly January/February, 3.5 million Moors were sent back to Africa and dispersed throughout the entire world. The Spanish decided that the best option was to defeat the Moors in order to unify their country. The Moors were very hardworking people. They actually contributed a lot of science to Europe as well as medical practices and advances. So at the time, this seemed like the best option, but had the Spanish not done this, Spain could have also contributed so much more medical advances and scientific works to the rest of Europe. So next we're going to be talking about the Jews. The Jews were the tax collectors and the farmers and the medical people in Spain. So when Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand took power, they converted everyone to Catholicism. If people did not choose to convert to Catholicism, they were either put in prison, they were killed, they were sent all around the country as a sign of treason for not converting to Catholicism. So a lot of the Jews converted to Catholicism, but at home they would continue to practice their Jewish culture and practices. So in the public eye, they were following the rules of the Catholic Church and the king and queen, but a lot of the time at home they were practicing their own religion. So a lot of the Jews did not convert and they were sent out of the country. So this was a big blow to society because, as we talked about, the Jews were the main people who were running the culture in the town. So when they were excommunicated, basically, the Spanish culture had to readjust. Next, we're going to talk about the main event that happened in 1492, or not the main event necessarily, but the most recognizable one, which was Christopher Columbus settling in the Western world. Christopher Columbus first went to Portugal to ask for money for his voyage, but Portugal said no and they thought he was crazy. So he went to Spain, and Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand, after some negotiating, agreed to take on his voyage and fund him. So along with Christopher Columbus and his voyage, there were several sailors that went with him. He had 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. And after several days of sailing, or not days necessarily, weeks per se, Christopher Columbus ended up in the Bahamas and then eventually landed off the coast of Florida. The native people there weren't really sure what was going on. They never had invaders per se before, so this was all new to them, and Christopher Columbus sent word back to Spain. So Spain got the recognition of funding his voyage and settling in the Western world. I'm sure Portugal was kind of kicking themselves because of it, because their name was not associated with this great find. So Christopher Columbus's voyage is the most well-known event in 1492, but not necessarily the most important one. And the last event we're going to talk about is Antonio Nebreja. He wrote the first work in the Spanish language. Most of the works at that time had been in the vernacular in Latin, so he decided to write the first Castilian work. His work was the Spanish grammar book, and it allowed people to learn about the Latin rules set in place of vocab and all stuff like that, but in their native language, so they could really understand and learn the works. A lot of people thought this work was singular, but this book has been split up into 5 books. The first is the orthography, the second is the prosody, the third is the etymology, fourth is syntax, and fifth is the introduction to the Castilian language for those of a foreign tongue who want to learn. So when he wrote this, he wasn't just thinking of his people, he was thinking of people all over the world and how they could benefit from this work as well. He started his but his research in Italy. He worked there for 10 years and then eventually came under the throne of Isabella and King Ferdinand, and he worked in their court. So that's where he basically wrote his work in Spain. So These are the 4 major events that we talk about in 1492 that created this crucial year, as you will. But these aren't the only events that happened in that year. A lot more events have not been talked about and not been deemed crucial enough to be considered under the crucial year. But it's up to us to continue history, to keep researching and finding new events, and to make sure the bad history does not repeat itself. It's important to learn about all aspects of history, both sides, so we can have a greater understanding of the world we live in. Thank you.